Hello all you enormously incredible people of the internet, welcome back to another episode of Cassar Industries. We've got the drift nugget up on the hoist behind us. Let me show you what we're going to crack into today. So in this episode, we're going to try and round out all of the rest of the work that I want to carry out on this thing. In the previous episode, we started doing a couple of maintenance items on this, such as like clutch fluid, power steering fluid, coolant, and spark plug, supercharger oil, fuel filter, a few other bits and pieces. We're just going to go through and do a couple more of the oils. We're going to go through and do diff oil and gearbox oil. I did do these before the previous event, but let's just start with a clean slate and go from scratch. So I do run the Pro Gear Penrite 80W140 in the diff, and I normally run 7580 trans gear Penrite oil in the gearbox, but it does get pretty notchy once it gets hot, once everything warms up. I know that's probably get rag things, but I want to try and step it up to a 75-85 full synthetic, so it'll be just a tiny bit thicker when it's hot, and also add in the Nulon smooth shift additive that I normally run. So not going to film doing this. Done it before, filmed it before, you've probably seen it before. Gearbox, we've got our drain plug and our fuel plug, and then our rear diff, we've got our drain plug there and our fuel plug up here. So I'm just going to knock these two Driveline oils out first, and then we'll drop the car down and keep going with other things. Rightio, we've got those two Driveline oils done, so that's awesome. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to give this thing a really, really small bump in the power department. And I mean small, like minuscule, small bump in the power department. So this is our harmonic balancer. This is what drives our supercharger and our accessory drive. This thing has a little bit of a wobble. I did notice it at the start of the last event, very minor, and it was slightly worse by the end of the last event, but it's still not super bad, but it's enough to make me a little bit concerned. So I've actually lashed out and got ourselves a Powerbond race balancer. So this thing is a bit of a unit. It's all made from one piece of metal. And as you can see, this is what runs the serpentine belt for the accessory drive. This is what runs the supercharger belt. And you can see it's a little bit larger in that department to overspin the supercharger by about 5%. Factory belt for the supercharger is 6 pk like the serpentine belt. This is an 8 pk wide because you can upgrade the width of your supercharger belt if you're running really high boost to prevent belt slip, but we're not going to do that. We're also going to throw on a couple of new belts while we've got it apart. Quiet design. So we're going to do that. These belts aren't that old. I put them on when I put this engine in, so we'll keep these as spares. Although the supercharger belt won't fit with the larger overdrive balancer. So when I say this is a small bump in the power department, to increase boost on these things, you normally run a smaller pulley up top, or you can go a larger one down the bottom. So I never had any intention of increasing boost on this, only because it has been a reliable package. The car does what I want it to do. The more boost you run, the more heat you generate. The more heat you generate, the more you start to compromise reliability. But I do know that with running that balancer with a factory upper pulley, it only increases boost by about 1 to 1.5 PSI. So I'm not too concerned about it. And also when the ECU was tuned for this car, I told Mace that I was going to be running around 9 PSI originally, and then I decided to keep the standard pulley setup. So the tune in this should be fine to suit this setup with that more than enough. So you've seen me pull balancers off before, so I'm not going to film too much of it. Go back over my old videos if you want to see it. But basically, intake duct off, top cover above the radiator off, then the radiator fans come out. We pull the two belts off. With the fans out, there's enough room to get a rattle gun on the crank bolt. Pull that out, use the puller to get the harmonic balancer off. So I'm going to blow it all apart and then show you what it looks like when it's all apart. Rightio, 12 minutes in, and I had a phone call. It's all apart. So that's what it looks like with the balancer off. Here's our factory balancer here. Here's our harmonic balancer pulling tool. Got our crank bolt off and all cleaned up as well, ready to go back on. Someone, don't know who, may have used a little bit too much Loctite on this because that was actually hard to get out. So anyways, now we're going to get this ready to go on. Run a little bit of sealant behind the head of the bolt and then just a tiny bit of Loctite. I said a tiny bit, Dave. Listen, a tiny bit of Loctite on the thread here. Then we'll go through and slap her all back together. Job all done. Got the new balancer on, looking all fly and shiny. Very good. Now to lift the thing up, and I'll show you what we're doing. I'm going to do a whole bunch of stuff in the rear end of this thing. Got the nugget up on the hoist. It's actually been almost 6 weeks since we did that harmonic balancer, believe it or not. Time flies. Busy things going on. So we're going to do a whole bunch of stuff in the rear end. So first thing I'm going to do is actually bust these wheels off and take them down to the tyre joint to get some new rubber spun on them. Got some new tyres down there. So I'll get these wheels off, get the tyres sorted. I'll head back and then I'll show you what we're doing. Completely destroyed these tyres at the last event and wanted to keep going and finish them off, but I needed to get the car onto the trailer. So anyway, first things first, let's get these wheels off. Rightio, drop my wheels off down the street. I'll go get them later. Next thing we're going to do on this thing is a little bit of work to the back brakes. So I run Bendix Ultimate pads everywhere in this car. So front pads, the rear foot brake, and the hydraulic handbrake are all running Bendix Ultimate pads. I think these are a copy rotor of an RDA rotor. And they were okay when I first put them on. They were literally the cheapest rotor I could find that had dots and lines on them on eBay. But they're getting to the point now where, I don't know if it's just because they're a cheap metal or whatever, but I've got to pull the handbrake quite hard to get the back wheels to lock up, even on a fairly skinny tyre. So what I've done now, after asking around a bit what rotors and stuff people use on the back of their cars, I've spent a bit of money and gotten some DBA T3 slotted rotors. These are probably one of the better rotors that are a direct replacement that you can get. Short of a slotted and drilled, but I didn't want to do that. High heat can cause cracking between the holes. So we're going to blow everything apart and get these on. And while everything is apart on the back, I'm going to scuff up all of these pads with some sandpaper, just because they're a bit glazed and stuff. I'm getting hot so many times. So we'll get it all apart and we'll go from there. Passenger side all pulled apart. Got our old rotor here. New rotor ready to go on, and I've sanded up the pads so they're ready to go in for the hydro. Slam it all back together. Good stuff. This side's done. Just got to go through and do exactly the same on the other side. Oof, what a mission. Fast forward about 3.5 hours and this side is done. The reason why it took about 3.5 hours is the hard line for the brake line for the hydraulic brake caliper, up the top there, was actually rubbing on the drive shaft, and I noticed that it had just started to rub through. It was damp around the sort of where it was rubbing. So I thought, yep, that's not real great, and that's probably why my brake fluid in the hydraulic handbrake was getting low towards the end of the last event. So then I had to go out to the farm, jack up and remove wheels off 2 cars in the mud, in the rain, before I found one that had the hard line that I needed that was still on it. And then while I was out, I went and picked up my wheels and tyres and came back, and I've now fitted that hard line and we've bled everything up and it's all good. So finally, that job's done. Next thing that I'm going to move on to is guard liners, because these are all flopping in the breeze. Back half of this one is already missing, as I mentioned before. But because of how long everything with the brake situation took today, I'm going to have to leave this for another day. I'm just going to cut this section of the guard liner off for now, and then we'll pick this back up another day. So I've gone through and cut off most of the broken bits. I'm going to sort of cover up this section when the metal part goes in. Well, I'm going to try to anyway. And then sort of the rest of it, as you can see, I've sort of put screws and washers to pin the rest of it in, just to sort of secure it a bit better. And I also painted the calipers, and don't worry, I did make sure to get overspray on literally everything else as well. So anyway, for today, I'm going to throw the back wheels on and then we'll pick this up again another day. Hello, how are you? We're back. It's been another couple of weeks. So you already know what we're doing. We're going to try and make some steel rear guard liners for the back sections of these guards and quarters. And we're going to do that out of some 1.6 mild steel plate. I've just got some squares there. So absolutely no idea how we're going to do this, but we will figure it out together, probably by starting to make some shapes on paper and whatever and just sort of see. But anyway, let's go on this journey together. Let's get into it. So this is probably going to take a few attempts, but what I'm sort of thinking is I'm going to cut a slot in the top of the sheet metal up there to sort of like, so I can go up above this so that this section of the rail will sit inside this square sheet. And then I'm going to try and bend it so it follows the curvature of the bumper bar, and I want it to sit sort of inside here, and then we'll screw the bar into this bit of sheet metal, and then we'll figure out a way to secure it sort of to the rail and to here or whatever. I don't know. Let's just sort of get into it and see what happens. All right, so it's sort of starting to take shape a little bit, kind of. Clearance a little bit off the side there to clear the fuel tank strap. So now I'm going to trace around this section and sort of get that shape cut out and see if we can sort of get it in there. Sort of getting there, got our rough shape sort of cut out. Do need to bow this top section in so it sits further back. Not really sure I'm going to do that just yet, but we're sort of getting there. So I've used a series of carefully calculated screws, tech screws, to secure the outer bit. And I'm just going to weld the inner bit to the frame rail up in that corner and maybe make on a little bit of an extension to cover this bit and go up a little bit further, perhaps. And that's pretty much it, I reckon. Let's just weld it. Alright, well, this side is almost done. It's rushed. Ended up getting a bunch of phone calls. Had to go to 2 breakdowns, so now it's gotten real late in the day. And I've just sort of booger welded it together to finish it. So I've welded that corner to that rail there. Tacked on a bit of a section up the top to cover the hole. So now I'm just going to paint it. Got it all painted up. And you know what? It doesn't actually look too bad painted, considering the monstrosity that I made it. Even painted the back side of it. So now we'll throw the wheel on and do the same on the other side. Alrighty, it's another day. It's now raining. I actually don't know how long it's been. About a week, just over a week. Now we're going to get this side done. So then this job can be finally put to bed. It's going to be sort of much of the same, but there's a couple of other things to work around on this side. There's still that lip there that I want to be able to sort of go behind. But we've got the exhaust heat shield, which I have already trimmed back. But yeah, sort of much of the same. So I won't film too much of this side. I'll just sort of probably just show you what it looks like when it's done. This side's happening a lot quicker than the other side did. That's sort of our basic shape. So same thing, I'm just sort of going to screw it in through the bumper bar edge. Weld that other side. Should be good. All done, all painted, all finished. So added a little extension piece on the top as well, just to match the other side. It didn't need it, but just for fun. Even made a little bracket on the back there to do a bit of weld onto the exhaust heat shield as well, just to take any flex out of it. I did a similar thing on the other side as well, but I forgot to show you. So that's basically it. Wheel back on, and this is done. There was another job I wanted to do back here, but I'm just running out of time before the next event. There's just so much more that I've got to do as far as like retail work goes and getting other stuff sorted. I wanted to do some tyre sprays out of some like old windscreen washer squirters and put a bottle in the boot. I'm pretty sure I've got all the bits I need to do it, but that's just going to have to be a job for another day because we are running out of time. The next event is closing in. So now wheel back on, drop it down, and there is just one last thing we're going to do quickly before we call this thing done. Last little job we're going to do is just do an engine oil and all filter change. We've done absolutely everything else on this thing maintenance-wise as far as servicing goes, so this is the last thing to do. And I do like to always change my oil and all filter before every event anyway. So as always, I'm using the trusty old Penrite 1010s Racing 15W50 full zinc. I alternate. Sometimes I run in Ryco Z154 ST. Sometimes I use a K&N oil filter, but we'll go with the Ryco flavour today. And 1.5 litres of the Morris oil stabiliser. Not going to film it. You've seen me do it a dozen times, so I'll just go through and knock it out. Besides freezing cold, I think we are pretty much there with this car for now. The last 2 episodes on this thing have been focusing on fine-tuning this car as a package, sort of for what it is in its current form, and I think we're pretty much there. Like, I am very happy with the car and how it is. This has just been more about getting the car a bit more dialed in for how I want. We still do have a little bit more time before the next event. I think we've got like 2, maybe 3 weeks before the next event. I don't know, can't really remember, but it's on the 19th and 20th of July at Winton Motor Raceway, and it's Winter Matsuri hosted by Vic Drift. This car has not drifted Winton before. I personally haven't drifted at Winton for I reckon 12 years. So yeah, it's been a minute. I'm really looking forward to going back there and doing that event. I've always loved Winton as a drift track. I just haven't been able to get a chance to get there because it is from where we live. It's about 6.5 hours away. Calder alone is about 4.5. So still got to do a bunch of stuff on the lead up between now and then, besides my retail work, which is just going off the hook at the moment. I've still got to send this for an alignment. I've still got to get some maintenance done on my car trailer. I've still got to service my four-wheel drive. We've still got to finish Jason's car because he's coming along to that as well. So still a lot going on, and looking into the future between now and that event, zero chance that I'll be able to get any more work on this thing done. So that's why over the course of the past few months that's taken to do these last two videos, just while I've had sort of like pockets of time, I've just been jumping on and off it when I can. So that's basically that. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed these last couple of episodes. Please remember to like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. And until I see you in my next video, be good to yourselves and each other as always.